Okay. Well, welcome everyone. It's 6 o'clock, so we're going to get this chat with the chief started. It has been a while since we've had one, so welcome to all of those who are joining us on Zoom and also on Facebook. And hope you're ready for a potential stormy night here as well, too. They're calling for a lot of wind and gusts, so excited to have the change in weather happening as well. And I just want to do a little housekeeping here. If you have any questions and you're on Zoom, please put them into the chat. That's how we respond and kind of watch your questions coming in. And if you're joining us on Facebook, we watch those questions coming in and we will answer those as well. And so we're watching both of those. And if you have a need for translation, we do have that available. And we have Lupe who's going to talk to her audience.
Buenas tardes, me llamo Lupe y voy a traducir esta noche para el chateo del jefe de policía. Si usted tiene alguna pregunta, por favor, use la función de chat y con gusto le contestamos sus preguntas. Y ahora les presento a Tiarra Warner, que es manejadora de los servicios comunitarios. And now I'll turn it over to you, Tiarra.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Hello to everyone in Zoom and Facebook. My name is Tiarra Warner, and I am the Community Services Manager for the City of Rohnert Park. Fun fact, I've lived here for 9 whole weeks. And this is my first live chat with everyone. So happy to be here. And thank you, Chief, for the invite that I totally knew was coming. Totally prepared for tonight. So I'm ready to get started with you, Chief. Do you want to say hello to everyone?
Oh, absolutely. So for those out there joining, thank you so much. I know it seemed like we took a little break from the chats. We really didn't. We spent the last probably 2 months, right around 2 months, going out into the community and doing community meetings on the police accountability and the police community relations. And so we were still out there. We were still connecting. We just weren't able to do the chat. So I'm glad they're back. I missed them, and I'm looking forward to tonight and getting back on track with our chat. So, and Tiarra, again, thank you so much for volunteering for this. No, I'm glad to have you, and hopefully we'll get a chance to let our community know some of the great things you're doing here, and I'll let them know that we are happy that we stole you from, I think Beverly Hills or Southern California area. And so I'm glad you're getting a chance to get introduced to our community.
Yes, sir. I came from the famous 90210. The weather is definitely different here and trying to get used to that as well. So any tips about surviving the cold, just you can put those in the chat as well. That'd be great. And where I could find a good jacket. So Jill, I only have the one question that I got through email. Do you want me to start with that one?
Sure, I think that'd be fine.
Cool. It's a long one, Chief, so hang in there with me, okay?
You got it.
All right, so at a recent field users meeting presented by Parks and Rec staff, many, if not all of those in attendance expressed frustration and concerns regarding increased experiences with people or groups of people who bully, threaten, and harass them while they're during their permitted time to use fields. Some of these incidents often occur in front of children who are playing, and a lot of these incidents happen at Sunrise Park all-weather field. It was with the consensus of those in attendance that night, including some staff, that public safety will not respond because they have more serious issues to deal with, or when they do respond, there are no consequences for those who are interfering and threatening legitimate groups which further escalates the problem. So my question is, are your officers aware of Municipal Code 9.62.010? And has anyone been cited for violation of this code? Secondly, if this code is unenforceable as written, what changes need to be made?
So the code itself is not unenforceable, and we are familiar with the code. In fact, I'm I know the person who wrote this, and I saw it come in earlier, and earlier in the year, we were dealing with a situation at another park with another group. And as a result, we were actually able to bring all of our staff, new officers included, up to speed with this code to try to help solve some of the problems we were dealing with in that problem. So yes, very familiar with it. It's unfortunate. I wish I could have been at that group, that meeting that night to address some of these concerns. I'm not sure how many of these concerns are recent and how many of them are from the past that were kind of part of the discussion that night. So when COVID hit and we started closing down fields, once we started taking some of those restrictions off and opening up, we had a very strategic and precise permitting process. And we were having problems with people showing up from other cities and other groups who hadn't been properly permitted going onto the field. And so we actually worked with Parks and Rec or Community Services to try to address that. So we were being updated every day on who had permits. And I know this happened because I was one of the main people that was going out there 3-4 times a day to make sure the permitted people were there and not being bothered by the unpermitted people. We did not, that I know of, write any citations for that code. However, we did write citations for violating the COVID health order at the time. So we were addressing it in different ways. One of the problems with the code like that is it's not unenforceable, but you have to understand when someone calls us out there and says these people are doing this behavior, and we show up in our police cars and our uniforms, that behavior generally stops before we can get out there. So in order to enforce that, I need someone out there who witnessed it to be my victim, to come and say, I will sign that ticket, or I will be your witness, right? So when we get there, a lot of times we find the person, they want the problem solved, which I can understand. They don't want to get that involved that they're going to be called into a court process or have to be the one to stand up to that group. And so generally they don't want to sign a ticket. So generally we can say, we'll deal with it, but I can't enforce the citation because I didn't actually see the violation. I need the help. So that's it. Can be a double-edged sword sometimes. The code is there, but we have to see the behavior. And 99% of the time when we show up, that behavior stops. And so we don't have a lot to go on. So I believe that during that time when I think people are talking about this, public safety was very active out there. And we've never refused to respond to something like that. But there is a priority in calls. And we can't always get to someone arguing about a field if we're going to higher priority calls. But I will say that community services and public safety work very closely, and we still do, to ensure that the people who are permitted have the times that they want or they need. So that's how I'll answer that question now.
So the showing up is part of the deterrent. So at least part of that's working, right?
Well, it is, and it's it was difficult because we had these large adult soccer teams coming from Santa Rosa because they had restrictions there too. So you have all these leagues that are trying to find a place to play. We opened it up, but they didn't necessarily want to follow the rules because we required a COVID plan. We required only so many people on the field, social distancing, no competition, masking. And so in order to get a permit, you had to show community services, you had that plan. It had to be approved. A lot of people would come by, they'd see the fields are open and, oh, we can play here. And you get an adult soccer team who's trying to, who's there with a young group, a teen team, and it can be kind of uncomfortable. So we were getting calls every day to the fact that I was going out there 4 and 5 times a day, and patrol was going out there just to do walkthroughs every day to make sure that we were separating the permitted people from not. And it took a while, but we finally, after issuing a few citations, we finally got the message across that if you don't have a permit, you can't be here.
In Beverly Hills, we used to get a lot of calls for activities to do in our park that we couldn't, so we'd send them to the city next door, and it sounds like Rohnert Park might be the city next door. The other city folks might be sending folks too. All right, I have another question from Facebook. We had kids riding on their bike onto the field during soccer games, which could have caused injury. We called, no officers showed up. What can those folks do next time to get some help?
I mean, call, like I said, we don't turn down calls. We don't have this thing of we're not going to that call or we are going. But oftentimes we are on different calls. We are tied up with other things. We have higher priority calls, and we just don't make it in the time that we need to get there to do that. So continue to call. And, I always pass along after I have the chats, I always pass along some of the concerns that came from the community. And I always have a concern if people are saying we called you and you didn't show up. I know there's a reason for it. Our officers just don't show up, but it's something that doesn't sit right with me when I think a member of the community thinks that they called and we didn't respond. So I'll always go to briefing and say, hey, just, you got to be aware of it. Even if you can't get by at that time, make sure you drive by later, get out of your car, walk in, talk to everybody, find out what happened. So it's a good reminder for us, but please call, because you're right. If you get people riding bikes through an athletic competition, someone could get hurt, and we certainly don't want that. I don't know, maybe Tiarra, you can answer this too. On the weekends, when the parks are full and there's soccer games and baseball games and going on, does community service have individuals that are monitoring the park or kind of responsible for that park during the weekend? And I'm just wondering if there is a city employee on the grounds who might be able to assist in that too, or I'm just curious.
We have, if we have rentals at our community centers, we have a facility attendant that sometimes floats and will go check in on the parks. We've been talking about possibly having staff available to float on the weekends. We're not quite there yet, but it's definitely something we're thinking about. But if there's something on the community center building, we definitely have folks that'll start floating around.
Okay. But if you're at a park and something's going on, yeah, call public safety, call dispatch. And if we have an officer, we'll get over there, definitely.
And then is there just following up on the calls, is there a follow-up time period? Like if someone calls and they don't get a response, like this person in the chat, should they follow up again? If no,
well, especially if it's ongoing.
Yeah.
If we haven't been able to get there and 20 minutes has passed and it's still happening, yeah, let us know, because it can move up into a higher priority, but a lot of times by the time we can get there, even if it's a 5 or 7 or 10 minute response, a lot of times they're already gone. But we'll always come by if we can, and when we get there. For instance, here's a quick scenario of yesterday. So we had the mountain lion situation yesterday, and then we had a individual who was having some mental health issues running in traffic. So one of my officers dealt with the mountain lion situation, and then dealt with that mental health issue yesterday. By the time they got that situated, got the person in the car, and then had to drive the person to the hospital and then to the crisis center. Those were the 2 calls the officer was those 2 calls took up his entire shift, because they were just these enormous calls, right? They're just so time consuming. And so, a lot of times an officer will get on a domestic violence, a drunk driver, and it just ties them up. So it's not that we don't want to respond. It's just sometimes we're just unable to break away from the call we're on or from the higher priority calls to get to those. So they're all important. They just have to be prioritized in some manner.
I can safely say I've never had a Monday like that in my entire career.
Yes.
From Facebook, we have a comment that says, "Good job with the mountain lion." And I echo that. Great job with the mountain lion.
Well, thank you. So just going back to that, I actually got a briefing from my lieutenant. I went out there for a minute and I just kind of from a distance, I was watching the crews work and stuff. And then later I got a briefing from my lieutenant and to say, kind of walk me through this, you know. And it was interesting because my lieutenant's been in law enforcement for 25 years. Some of the officers have been out there for, you know, 7 to 12 years. And it's funny how, and I've been in this job for 31 years, and we all learned something yesterday, right? So when we got there, you know, the officers, just to try to secure the situation, you know, they did the right thing. They let the schools know, hey, we got, you know, you got a lockdown, we got this going on. Apartment complexes, people in the area know, right? And then it's like, we got to contain this animal while we figure out the next steps. But one of the things was to make a plan, right? Okay, worst case scenario, this mountain lion starts running up the hill towards the school. What do we do, right? And, you know, the discussion was, well, we're probably going to have to put it down at that point, right? These are some of the discussions we had. No one wants to do that, but it is a discussion that was taking place so that when it happens, it's not a surprise, right? Well, we found out later when we talked about when the vet got on and Fish and Game got there, and you know, we were kind of talking about it. They said, oh, you know, there are state laws like animal laws that you can only shoot the mountain lion if it's like actively attacking someone. If it's going at someone or running towards someone, it's not a threat at that point, you know. So there was a huge discussion on that. But you know, I just found it interesting that even after 31 years, you're still learning, right? Because you don't come up with mountain lion sightings all the time. So,
I hope not.
yeah. So, you know, now the next time we have one, when we make that plan, it will involve more discussion, right? So, yeah, it was a good day. The mountain lion was safe, and you know, it's in a good place. No one got hurt, and we all learned something.
So the mountain lion action plan. All right, glad we have those in place in Roaner Park. Okay, next question. Is there an opioid slash fentanyl? Are there opioid slash fentanyl issues in Roaner Park, and is Narcan available for the public?
Great question. There isn't. Rohnert Park is not immune to the opioid fentanyl epidemic, not at all. You know, I hope people out there make good choices. You know, the fact that it is in Rohnert Park doesn't mean you have to ingest it into your body, but it's here. We take a lot of fentanyl off the streets, and we've had some recent arrests that included a lot of fentanyl, right? Which for me is worrisome for my office because that stuff is very dangerous. You don't have to necessarily put it in your mouth or in your body physically to get it to affect you. So it is scary the amount of opioid and fentanyl we're taking off the streets. Second part of that question, yes, we do carry Narcan, and we have had numerous saves with our personnel and Narcan. I'm amazed at how many times we use Narcan successfully, which is great because, you know, we want to give people those second and third chances, you know, to make the right decisions and you know, but yeah, Narcan is with us all the time. All of our personnel are trained in it. They all carry it and they use it effectively.
All right. Now, have you seen an increase in that use? Is it like?
Well, in the use of Narcan, it stays pretty steady. And I would say probably 2 or 3 a month. We hit someone with Narcan. That's probably an average. But we have definitely seen an increase in the amount of fentanyl we are seeing in the city. Okay. And so, you know, that's when I'm trying to think of what prop it was. It's 49 or 59 when they kind of decriminalized drugs, right? Possession of methamphetamine, possession of heroin, possession of mushrooms, you know, psilocybin, all became misdemeanors, right? And so they're no longer felonies. They don't carry the same punishments. and then, the legalization of marijuana. We've seen a huge increase in drugs since then, because people look at it as it's not really criminal anymore, right? It doesn't have that criminal attachment to it. And, it doesn't help when, we find somebody with a bundle of methamphetamine in their pocket, and we write them a ticket. You get the same piece of paper for having narcotics in your possession as you do running a stop sign, right? It's a ticket. So it's taken a lot of the punch away from that. And so, people aren't afraid of the consequences of being caught with fentanyl or meth or, heroin. Give me my ticket and I'll go get some more, because that's what I'm going to have to do, because you took it from me. So now I've got to go get more to feed my habit that I have, right? So, I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I will tell you that the first part of my career, when methamphetamine and heroin and stuff was a felony, and there was a little bit more kick behind it, I saw more results then than I do now when we're just giving people a ticket. So we got to do something. There's got to be some consequences, or we're just going to see increases like they're seeing all over the country. All
right. Thank you for all of that information. The next question is for me, though, so I'm going to take over now.
Thanks.
I think it's for me. It says, please give an overview of community services for the new followers. So the community services department services the community, and that's the answer. I'm kidding. So right now we have a sports center and a community center and a theater all in one complex, and we also have a senior center. And the community services department is meant to have programs that serve the community. We have gymnastics class for kids, we have ballet, we also do facility and picnic rentals. So if you want to reserve a picnic for a birthday party or a baby shower, you do that through us. We talked a little bit in the beginning about our fields being heavily used, and if you want a permit to use our fields, you come through our department as well. We have a ton of leagues that use our fields, especially Sunrise, because it's the all-weather field. It's the most popular. It's gorgeous. But we also have pickleball courts that folks use quite heavily, that are really popular. Our senior center is open Monday through Friday, and there's programming going on there those days from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And there's lots of great services that we provide. So I recommend you look up our website. I'm gonna say rpcommunityservices.org. And check out all the programs we have available. We have a guide that has all of the information that you'll need if you're looking for programmings or just information on all of our facility rentals. And with that, we also do community events. So the next event we have coming up is the Halloween Carnival with the Dia de los Muertos celebration. That is on October 30th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. And that's going to be at the community services, the community center complex on Snyder. So we'll have 13 altars dedicated to the Dia de los Muertos celebration. There's going to be a baby kangaroo, and that's the thing I'm the most excited about. So please come by and check out the baby kangaroo. But there's going to be lots of food, a haunted maze that has a scary and non-scary portion. And we're partnering with the Latino Alliance and Project Grad to put on a lot of the activities. So we're really excited. That was a mouthful and a lot of things, and just a little bit of what community services does. Last Saturday, we had a pumpkin splash. I think it was the last hot day of the year, I've been told. So kids got to jump in the pool and go diving for pumpkins. So we were very excited to have over 50 kids join in that activity as well. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do.
Excellent answer. I feel like the host now. Hey, so you also, you guys also do like rentals of some of your buildings for gatherings and that, I think, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, we do. We do rentals in our building. So we have the community center over on Snyder and then Burton Rec as well. Last this past weekend, for example, there was a big quinceañera. So the rentals are getting more and more popular as people are having parties for their family and friends. And it's great to see folks in person and being able to have those celebrations with each other.
Excellent.
I don't know if the picnic rentals are going to be very popular for a while because of this thing called rain that you have up here in Northern California, but
Well, that's how you get all your water down in Southern California when you're there.
I guess I missed a big storm last weekend in SoCal, so I'm glad it made it up here. So next question is back to you, Chief. It says, was Wobbly, the mountain lion, returned home to the mountains?
It's interesting. People are calling it Wobbly, but apparently the mountain lion it's been being tracked since it was 3 months old. My understanding, it had a tracker on it. So the whoever's been tracking him has kind of been knowing the whereabouts. It's obvious that the mountain lion had some kind of neurological issue, and that's the name Wobbly. Didn't walk real steady, had some kind of hitch in his giddy up back there. But yes, so the mountain lion was tranquilized and taken to an animal rescue where they're going to kind of make sure it's healthy, gets some food in it, and is ready to go. And then it will be released back into the mountains. That is what I've been told and assured of. So, but apparently that mountain lion, that lion has been tracked for a while. It's been tracked like it has a pretty like standard course that it has. So it did kind of come off course a little bit to end up down in the creek with us, but it's been in the area for a while. Just this is the first time it's crossed Petaluma Road, I guess. So, but we'll get it back to safety and let it live out its life up in the mountains where it belongs.
She diverted from her route.
Yes.
Not her typical Monday. And then the follow-up question from Facebook is, do any of the Rohnert Park officers carry tranquilizers?
No, we don't.
Just in case they see a mountain lion crossing the river.
No, they'd be shooting each other out in the field with those things. But, so no, we know our limitations, and we know that when it comes to the animals, maybe we can just secure an area and call the experts in. Fish and game, that's their expertise, and we want to get them in there. It's interesting. I was talking to one of my lieutenants today about some equipment that we're trying to get for the safe team, and one of them's an EpiPen to put on there, and you have to actually have a prescription to get an EpiPen, right? Because it's considered a medicine. The same applies for the tranquilizers, right? When I was in one of my other cities, we also did animal control, and we had discussed, because we had this situation with these huge dogs that were attacking a little dog, and so the discussion came up about tranquilizers and maybe getting one in the sergeant's car, just so we had the ability if we ever had to. And it is a pretty big process to get authorized one, to have the tranquilizer gun, to have the darts, but the medicine, you actually have to be under you have to have a vet that will basically, you will work under that vet, right? It's like a subcontractor, and it's kind of hard to get a vet to go along with getting a bunch of cops tranquilized for darts. So we actually just said, let's just call in the game wardens, let the experts come in, and we're going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I like that call. And I imagine because EpiPens expire, like you would have to make sure your tranquilizer didn't expire also.
There were issues with having to keep it at a certain temperature, and so you couldn't just throw it in a duty bag. And if you need it, it doesn't do you a lot of good if you get out there and you got to run all the way back to the PD to get in the refrigerator and run. So it's probably not a good idea, especially when we have fish and game. The wildlife people that came out yesterday, they were just to watch them work also, and then to watch them work with the team. They were amazing, and I was really proud of how we all worked together, not even knowing each other. We just were working for the best interest of the mountain lion and the community. but they really are experts in their field. And if you get people like that, the best thing you can do is say, how can I support you? Move out of their way and let them get there, let them get in and do their job. And like I said, it was a learning experience for us yesterday.
I always joke that recreation professionals know a little bit about a lot of random things, and it sounds like the Rohnert Park Public Safety Department probably knows a little bit of a lot of things also.
Well, when you think about it, we are both police and fire. So we already cram a lot of information into our personnel, right? What you would normally have two people do, and we have one person doing. So we filled in with a lot of information, a lot of training, and then we throw mountain lions and different stuff at them. So yeah, they go home and usually have a different story to tell every night with what we do.
Yeah, my mom was very impressed with the mountain lion story, I will tell you. And I wasn't even in charge of catching her. So next question we have is, has theft increased because drugs and theft go hand in hand?
I don't know that. I mean, we've seen some upticks in thefts over the last year and a half. We've tried to figure out, is it because of COVID? Is it because people are out of work? Is it because people, are out of work and need money? Is it because they're out of work and they're bored? But we have seen uptick in thefts. But again, it's that same argument that when, I want to say it was Prop 59 when it passed, and it it took possession of drugs from felonies to misdemeanor. It raised the limits on all of our thefts. So it used to be $400, now it's $1,000, right? Basically for a theft. So it basically made it more difficult to prosecute, basically. And I think we just see that there's very little consequences out there if you get caught committing a theft, or you get caught committing, most of these, what they consider petty crimes. And I mean, it's, you could look at your children, right? And if you tell them not to do something, if there's consequences to doing it, you'll probably get compliance. If there's no consequences, they're probably going to do it just because it's like, well, they said not to do it, but if I do it, I'm not going to get any trouble. So why not do it? That's the same thing. It translates to the streets, right? If again, we finally catch you stealing that catalytic converter and we write you a ticket and you don't find yourself in jail, or we do book you and you find yourself walking out the back door before I could even get back to write the report, you're like, man, that really wasn't that bad. I stole a catalytic converter. I got a ride to jail. I got a couple meals, and now I'm back out on the street, and I really don't think anything's going to happen to me. It's pretty frustrating. So, yeah, we've seen thefts kind of go up and down. They've probably risen across the state, probably across the nation. We make a lot of arrests, I will tell you that. But once we make that arrest and we book that person or we cite that person, the remaining part of the justice system is not in our hands any longer, right? And so, just keeping the staff motivated to where they're not saying, why do we do it? Nothing happens to them. It's like, my philosophy is I can't help what goes on outside my control, but we're going to do our job. We're not going to do our job because maybe something else isn't getting done, down the road. So you do your job, you be very proactive. And we'll let we'll let the chips fall where they may there. We can't control that. So yeah, and I really encourage people. We've had the discussions about the catalytic, converter thefts, and we know they're going on. We know it's happening. And I always say there's two parts to a crime, right? There's the intent to commit the crime, right? And then there's the opportunity for the crime to happen. Can't really control the intent. If someone wants to go out and commit a crime, I really don't have the control over them to stop that part. So where we try to look at is, how do we take away opportunity? So that if there is intent and no opportunity, it makes it pretty tough, right? And not leaving valuables in your car, The catalytic converters, they're so easy to steal when they're parked on the street, try to park them in your garage would be great. Unfortunately, the majority of our community and communities all around, people use their garage for storage. Therefore, they can't put their car in the garage, so it sits out in the driveway, or they've got more than one car, so one's in the driveway, one's in the road. Well, that makes it easier. Those are opportunities, so we've got to try to remove the opportunities for the thefts to happen. And I know that if everybody had the opportunity to park their car in their garage, they would. So I know that's not, anyone's fault, but increasing your lighting, making sure you're not leaving valuables in the car, making sure you're not providing anybody the opportunity to look in there and take something. Because like I said, intent and opportunity, that's the two things that create crime. Take away the opportunity.
Excellent. I'm still a little worried about my catalytic converter. I only have a carport, so just a little concerned, but I appreciate that. I will keep it off the street as much as possible. The next.
Well, to go back on that point,
Yeah.
we've also talked, and you weren't here, so you would, but we've also talked about, take him to a shop and have they're welding screens on them. They're doing things that if someone was to climb under there and look, might say this one's going to take way too long to get off because of the protective something they've done. Okay. Right. So if it's got to be outside, there are other things you might be able to do.
Or do you think shops are preparing for that? So if I called up my local shop, would they be prepared to help me protect my catalytic converter?
I believe there's a lot of shops that have realized that that's a new niche for them. Okay. Because of the catalytic converter. So I would call around until I found one. Yeah.
Perfect. I have a plan for this weekend. Thank you. See, I'm learning too. This is why you did this. I get some new info from me. I appreciate it. The next comment is for me. I think maybe it's for both of us. It says, "Thank you. You're great, and we're glad you're here." So I'll give that to both of us. Thank you.
That was for you.
Thank you, Facebook citizen. I appreciate it. Next up from Facebook, in case of emergency, are we set up for resource centers?
So it's funny because we would actually use a community center probably.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. So one of the things you can be very proud of your city for is we have done a lot of work in the area of our emergency operations center, our EOCs. We've done a lot of planning, and we've done a lot of preparation. We put in some new programs on running our EOC. And in fact, when we were in the midst of COVID, we had actually ran our EOC. Part of it was because it was just a good way to help us get through that initial rush of all the COVID information and new things. But we also talked about the fact it gave us a chance to really refine what we were doing and have the ability to either go virtual with an EOC or go live with an EOC. So we have plans in place for any kind of emergency. And yes, every time there's any kind of an emergency, one of the first things we discuss is opening up resource centers for our residents. And they would probably we usually start those discussions at the community center. Great question.
It's a team effort for sure. Then next up, someone said it was Prop 47 that you were referring to earlier.
Yeah, I remember it was 47 and 57 or something like that. They passed a few years apart. Yeah, one of them was the one where they promised all the money to go to the schools, and it passed. What people didn't realize was the way they were going to take money and send it to the schools was they were going to take it from the prison system because they were going to let a bunch of prisoners out. They were going to depopulate the prisons, send a lot of stuff down to the county, let a lot of people out, and then they wouldn't need as much money for prisons, so it would transfer over to the schools. That's a very simple description of that one. And so that one passed, and we saw all these people getting released from prison. We started seeing people being housed in county jail for 10 or 12 years because they were sentenced. And that saved money at the state level, corrections level. So that was the idea. And then a few years later, 47 came out, which started decriminalizing drugs and thefts and stuff. So we got hit a couple times, real close together, and we really saw increases in crime and drug use and stuff. So, and we're still reeling from it because I don't know that we've ever recovered from that. But thank you. I think that might have been Jill who gave me that information. She's always she never want me to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about up here, but I always I probably make more mistakes than anybody else.
Great, thanks. Someone also says, thank you for answering my question. So good job, Chief. Next up from Facebook, I'd love for the Chief to talk about our ribbon cutting next Tuesday.
Excellent. So we are, I don't know if people have watched the council meetings. I'm believing that every resident in Roaner Park on every other Tuesday watches a council meeting on channel 26 if they're not there. But if you missed it, we actually took the final, we took the MOU and budget to council last week for the SAFE team, which is our specialized assistance for everyone. This is that Cahoots style team that we're putting together in the city of Roaner Park and Cotati. It came out of the Eugene, Oregon Cahoots model. And so we are getting ready to launch that. We have our van, which I will openly tell the public that I stole from community services or senior center, right? Cindy found out about 2 weeks after it's gone.
Yeah.
So the van got retrofitted. It's back. It's getting the windows tinted. It's getting the sticker, the SAFE sticker on it. And we, Petaluma People Services, who we contracted with or have an agreement with to run the program, has already hired. They hired the staff, the Roaner Park staff. They're training this week in classroom. They're training next week. They're going to be riding in Petaluma to get with the experienced team. And then November 1st, we should be kicking it off in our city with actually our SAFE van with the EMT and a crisis worker on it. But you don't want to miss next Tuesday, the 26th, we are doing a ribbon cutting to introduce the SAFE van, the SAFE team, and the SAFE concept as our new alternate response to crisis situations in our city. So really exciting. A lot of people put a lot of work in to get this thing up and running. And, I just want to say thank you to everyone that did. And this is going to be a great new response model for our community. It's important to send the right people to the right call. And even though I've been in law enforcement for 31 years, I know that we are not always right for every call. And so to have this new model, as the city manager has said in a lot of our talks that we did throughout the community, currently, we can send a police officer, a firefighter, or an ambulance. And now we're adding just one more tool, right? Putting one more tool in our toolbox. Now we can send the SAFE team. So it gives us more options. And it's going to go so far in helping us better serve our community. So next Tuesday, October 26th, 5:30, right in front of City Hall, we are going to be doing a ribbon cutting. So if you can make it, please come out.
And are there many other cities, for instance, in California that have this type of program, or is Roaner Park blazing a trail for other cities to follow?
Yeah, so Petaluma was just ahead of us. We used the same consultant to get it going. Petaluma started their program back mid-July-ish, got it running. We're on the heels of that now. We're getting ready to kick ours off. One of the problems is literally one of the roadblocks to this program was finding a vehicle. It sounds crazy, right? But literally trying to find a vehicle. The Ford Transit vans are the absolute ideal vehicle for this, but you can't get them. You can't find them. We've ordered one, but it's 6 to 8 months out.
Oh, wow.
We're about 2 months into that order, but just trying to find the vehicle, which is why I had to commandeer the senior center van, right, and have it retrofitted. Petaluma, same thing. They ended up using an old ambulance. They had it wrapped, and so that's what they're using. So neither team has its actual vehicle that we will be moving forward with in the future. But that did set us back trying to find that. So Petaluma's got their program up and running. We are getting our program. It's now started. Santa Rosa is doing a model. It's the same concept, but it's a little different model. But it will be an alternative crisis response unit. And then I know that I've heard that Vallejo is looking at standing up a team. And our consultant who works down in Southern California is currently in the process of setting up 2 or 3 teams right now down in his area. So, you know, it takes a while to get traction, but the model has now gotten that traction. And I think it's going to be the standard that we see in California as far as having these alternate response models, so that we're not sending uniformed, police officers who are armed to mental crisis. Let's send the right team.
I love having the expanded toolkit. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So next question is from Facebook, and they want to know if there are any updates on the CERT program.
No, there's not. Until we get these restrictions lifted to where I can get people actually in a room training together, not having to wear masks, not having to sit 6 feet apart. And the testing that we're required to do just in our own agency, as that starts to lift, we are going to look at that at a CERT program. So I think it's a great program. We have this huge storm coming in tonight. Roaner Parks, Sonoma County hasn't seen rain like this for a while. I'm only going by the models that I'm seeing, but we could get some substantial rain. And I know the ground will absorb it, but the ground's hard. There's going to be a lot of runoff. When you have a CERT team and you have like street flooding and you have situations where you've got to go in and get people out because of high water, CERT teams that's what they're for, right? That's how you use them. So would I love to have a CERT team here? Yeah, and we'll get one here. We just got to wait until I can get people in, get them properly trained. We don't want to do it halfway. We want to do it right. So to that person who asked that question, I think that question's come up probably by the same person, and I haven't forgot about you, but you have my permission to continually remind me, all right, so that it doesn't fall off my plate, because it is important.
And his cell number is 70. I'm just kidding.
I think everyone has my cell phone number.
Oh, I don't have it. Come on. Oh man.
All right, not everybody.
Person, send me the chief's cell phone number. I need it. And then for some of us who are new to Rohnert Park, living and working, can you tell us a little bit about the CERT program? We had it in Beverly Hills, and if it's the same thing, community members were trained to kind of help in a natural disaster, train the folks on their block, essentially in their little radius, to help aid until.
Yeah, it's an emergency response team, citizens emergency response team, basically, and they're trained in emergency response. They're not the ones running into the house and the burning buildings and stuff, but they in my old city we would use a CERT team often when we had like a lost child or a missing child, right? Because their training includes grid searching and what you're looking for and how to report in and radio communication. So we could get our CERT team out there, and we could start getting in grids to go search in pairs. We could search more of the community in a much quicker way. If you had, like I said, if we had, a water related incident, tonight because a creek flows and starts flowing into homes, a CERT team could go out there and start assisting in evacuations. They may not be running in and grabbing the people out of the house, but they could be the people we're using to transport people to the community center where we're setting up an emergency shelter, right? So having that that resource and that asset of trained people who understand, radio communications, understand if we post you somewhere, that's your post. I know you're there, you can't leave, right? And then the other thing it is used for is oftentimes you ask them to train a certain population of their neighborhood in how to react if something happens. So yeah, CERT teams are great. And I'd love to have them here. But it's funny though, because they were always run through the fire department, right? And I've always been just a police chief, so I would assist the fire department in the training, but they always put it on. And I realized, wait, I got to put that on. We are the fire department, so yeah, it'll be my the first time actually putting on a training program and developing a CERT team for my department. So I'm excited about that too.
Very good. It looks like, do you have a question for me? Because I don't have questions for you just yet in the chat, but did you want to ask me something, Chief?
Well, I would like to take a couple minutes and send it to Jill, because we put some really important information out on our Facebook and Nixle recently about how to sign up for Nixles, right? And Jill put that together, and especially with this weather coming in and what we're, where we are with fire, I want Jill to take a few minutes to explain Nixle, how to sign up for it, and why it's important to sign up the way we would like you to. So can you do that for me, Jill?
Sure. And actually, I was just going to send a little note saying, hey, I want to talk about Nixle. So thank you for that perfect timing and intro. So yeah, we just want to talk about Nixle. Nixle is our primary method of communication when we're trying to send out, messages and sometimes, emergency messages or community. And so there's the 3 levels. There's the alert, which is the highest. And that's more like an imminent danger to life or property. And then we have the advisory, and then we have the community. The one thing that I really kind of want to talk about is in the settings, whenever people are selecting their Nixle options, there's the choice of email, and then there's the choice of text. And so a lot of people will pick one or the other, or they prefer to get a text message. Or they'll do both. But when a Nixle comes out, sometimes we'll hear comments of people saying, I signed up for text, but I only got an email, and they didn't get what they signed up for. So if you have both email and text selected, Nixle will send out through email. It's only going to pick that one. And it's how it's managing how to send out this communication all at one time. And so if it's an alert, it will go out for both. You're going to get your email and your text. The other thing for us as an agency, we send most of our communication out through email, and we incur a cost on our side to send text. So even though most of the time people think of text as like, oh, my carrier, I might incur the cost. Well, it's actually on our side, we have that cost associated with it. So for our community messages, like tonight's chat with the chief and other events, we're going to send it to community and to email only. So if you haven't signed up for email, you're not going to get those communications. For advisory, we kind of do both ways. And so it will depend on the event and kind of depend on, really the urgency of the message. So first level would be advisory, email only. So, and then it can go advisory with text, but it's kind of, text is reserved more on that emergency, trying to get your attention level. So we are asking that people go in, review your settings, and please add email. So that way you will get the bulk of our communications when we are sending out, our notices, because again, on advisory, we don't always send an advisory with a text message. And so that will kind of depend on the event and kind of the seriousness and kind of what we're gauging as well. So that was kind of, if you didn't see the flyer, it is on our Facebook page. We did send it out on Nixle. And so kind of take a closer look at that. You can kind of print it. Let us know if you have any questions, but really asking the community to check their settings. And then please do add email if you haven't already, because that will, make sure that you get the bulk of our communication.
Perfect. Thank you. Because I do know sometimes I cringe a little bit when I get the Nixle bill. So, Tiarra, I did have a question for you. Most people would wonder why someone would leave Southern California, Beverly Hills, to come up to Sonoma County, Rohnert Park. And I know that you probably have a real reason and maybe a desire to come up here. And so, I would say, what brought you, what coaxed you out of that area to come to Rohnert Park?
I've been a Niners fan my whole life, so I decided it was time to make the move. No, I really am a big Niners fan. I was born and raised in Southern California and born and raised in San Diego. Then I lived in Long Beach for a really long time. And the last city I worked for was Beverly Hills, and all really great cities, all great experiences. But I've always loved Northern California. And most of all, I love my profession and my job. And part of my ambition and goals includes becoming a manager and someday a director. And this opportunity presented itself. I'm going to give my boss a shout out, Cindy Bagley, because she's one of the greatest rec professionals on the planet. And that helped make the move the right choice for me, because as a young professional, to find a mentor and a boss that's going to be great for my professional development, it was a great choice. My mom, it took her 3 months to recover from my choice. So I did leave behind a lot of family and friends. However, what COVID taught myself and my friends and family is that we can still connect virtually, which has made the move a lot easier. Again, still not used to all the layering and the weather, but Northern California is a beautiful place. Sonoma County is great, and Roaner Park's amazing as well. And I want to give you a shout out to Chief. The Safe Fan is an awesome program that you've implemented in the city, and I'm proud to be associated with it. So good job to you too.
Thank you. We are excited about that. And, I'm going to pay for this one because you'll never let me live it down. But you do work for a great leader. Cindy is by far, she's dynamite. And I just want to say that, she told me about you when you were coming up, and I was really excited for you to get here, bring all your new ideas and your enthusiasm and your energy. But one of the things I'll say about this community is that the public safety department, with all the departments, but we have a great relationship and a working relationship with the community services department. I've been fortunate enough to, Cindy asked me, we actually did a presentation for the California Parks and Recreation Association, the state, right?
Yep.
And it really was about, our presentation was about collaborating between agencies, not working in silos, and how you can get a lot more done if you work together. And I always appreciated that about your boss, and I see that in you too. So I really want to thank you for coming on tonight. I really did. I mean, I know this is called Chat with the Chief, but this is an opportunity for me to introduce the community, some great people too. And I really wanted them to meet you, and know that we have a new community services manager over there who's doing some great things. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the invite.
Was it really an invite?
I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I told you yesterday, right? Hey,
Yes, you did.
Yeah, when? Tomorrow? I said, yeah, I don't give people a lot of leeway. I don't want them backing out last minute.
I could have, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, and that reminds me too, is I've had questions in past chats about how someone can host it. If you would like to host a chat, send me an email. We've got the Chiefs chat at rpcity.org. You've got my email, tmatos@rpcity.org. Just send me an email. And yeah, I'm always looking for someone who's interested in hosting this.
Or he'll find you.
Or I'll find you. Exactly. So,
Awesome.
all right. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any. So
I think we're good.
All right. Yeah. So if I don't see everybody or talk to everybody before then, have a safe Halloween. Make sure that the kids have some reflective or lights on them so that we can see them.
And, just be aware there's a lot of traffic out there and just be safe. And so until we meet again, which will be this first Tuesday of November,
Yes.
which would be
It'll be November 2nd.
2nd. That's right. Yep. All right. So we can talk about Safe Ban because Safe Ban should be on the street November 1st. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. So, all right. So until November 2nd, be safe. Have a great Halloween, safe weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.